Welcome to the second of our Back to School with LumaFusion online virtual training. We're just going to give it a few moments for everybody to join. Just to introduce ourselves quickly before we dive straight in, my name is Caroline Scott. I'm one of the certified instructors here at LumaTouch. I'm going to be guiding you through today's session where we're going to be diving into the 5 editors of LumaFusion. There is a lot to take in, but I'm going to be telling you as much information as I possibly can. And while I'm doing that, we have Amy Benson and Scott Squire who will be joining us, who will be answering all of your questions from the chat box. So please just post away. We've got you through the next hour. And hopefully if we have some time at the end, we can do a bit more of a Q&A as a discussion as a 3. But of course, that all depends on what we can get through. So we're going to go full steam ahead. Buckle in, guys. Open up your editors with me. We're going to do a live demo and we're just going to jump in and we're going to start editing together. This is what this virtual training is all about. All of us sharing our expertise and hopefully sharing our love of editing as we go, because I know we're all working on a range of different projects. So what I would like you to do, guys, is open up your LumaFusion editor. As you can see, I am in a project. Now, if you missed the last LumaTouch virtual training, that's absolutely fine. That was a really great introduction to the fundamentals of editing. We spoke about things like, and I'm going to demo them here, dragging and dropping content down onto that main track of our timeline, bringing the content down to start editing. We spoke about trimming our media, the beginning of our clips and the end of our clips. We also spoke about splitting our clips, okay, so splitting them in half, rearranging our clips by tapping, holding and dragging, deleting our clips by tapping that trash can at the bottom of the screen. And we briefly spoke about exporting our content. But if you missed that, that's absolutely fine. You can still dive into today's session and, we can practice along as we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by talking about the frame and fit editor. Okay, now the frame and fit editor is the first of our 5 editors we're going to talk about. And to get into any editor in LumaFusion, you need to double tap a clip. Now, as we spoke about in the last session, the timeline is for arranging your story. It's for crafting the order of your clips. But if you want to change anything about a clip, that might be its position on screen, its audio level, it might be its color or the effects you add it. You need to double tap it, okay? Just think of it as like going into a clip. So on the timeline here, and you can see where I am, guys, with this blue dot on screen, that is my finger, okay? So if you need to know where I am, that's my finger there. I'm going to double tap into this video clip. So I'm going to double tap that video clip twice. Okay. Now, guys, you can see at the bottom of the screen, we have some icons. At the moment, we're in this icon here, the frame and fit editor. Okay. Now, if I'm sharing my screen at some points, it might be a little bit blurry your end. So if you can't read it, just follow that blue dot. And I'm going to try my best to describe where I am on screen at all points. Okay. So in my frame and fit editor, this is where I'm going to be doing what it says on the tin, looking at whether the frame and the fit of the individual video clip. So this is basically picking where it is on screen. So with my finger, I can actually put my finger on top of that video and I can move it around. Okay, so I can move it left, up, down, right. Okay, so you can see I can very, very quickly change the position of a clip within my frame. So every time I talk about frame, guys, I'm talking about this white rectangle on screen. Of course, with 2 fingers, I can pinch the clip in and pinch the clip out just by doing this. Of course, I'm zooming the clip in and zooming the clip out. Remember, guys, when you are shooting video, the higher the resolution, the higher your ability and the more you're going to be able to zoom into that clip, okay? So don't go zooming all the way in if you're shooting in a lower resolution. So just keep it so that you've still got a beautiful picture there. If you're shooting in high definition, you should be fine as long as you don't try to zoom in all the way to 1 pixel. Now, so this is very easy, okay? We're all doing this together at home, moving our clips around the screen, pinching in, pinching out to change the size. You'll also notice if I twist my fingers around while they're on the picture, I can actually change the rotation of that clip as well. Okay, so you can have a bit of fun with it there. One of the most important things you must note from the frame and fit editor is this icon over on the right-hand side. You're all going to love me after this section because if you tap on that, it will restore your clip back to its natural position. Okay, so it doesn't matter what you do. Look, I'm twisting this, I'm turning it inside out. I'm even going to stretch this clip. Look, it looks awful now. but I'm going to tap on that icon and it goes back to normal. I found that out way later than I should have. So don't make the mistake that I did. So that icon is there to help you reset your clip. Okay, so that's the basis of the frame and fit editor. Now, if you look over to the right-hand side of the screen, at the top, you're going to see all of these beautiful presets. Okay, now this is LumaFusion doing some of the work for you. So if you don't actually want to spend the time moving your clip into a particular position, making it a particular size, you can just go and find where you want to put this. So let's say you want to put your image at the bottom of the screen. I can click on the icon that says bottom picture in picture. That's what PIP stands for. And you can see, there we go. My clip has just gone to the bottom of the screen. Center, left, bottom left, and so on. Super, super easy. If you don't want to do those, and you don't feel like you have enough control by just using your finger, because I know some of you are editing on your smartphones, and especially when you get started, you might think, okay, my hands are way too big for this little screen. I'm sure as you get on with it, you'll get used to it, as we all do. But if you're just getting started with that and you're thinking, actually, I need to be more specific, or you're working for a particular project and you need your clip to be in an exact position every time you edit, you might want to use some of the sliders on the right-hand side of the screen. Now you can see we're automatically in this section called size and position. Now under size and position, we can see we've got our position X. Remember guys, back to school, our X axes and our Y axes, right? So we can move the slider along and you can see I can move incrementally across the screen. I can do that either with the slider or I can tap on these arrows left and right. And you can see that number going down at the moment, so 102 all the way down, or I can move right incrementally. You can see that picture just moving ever so slightly. Now you see there I double tapped the slider. If you double tap, let's say we've moved our clip over here and you want to go back to what it was before, to essentially the original position, we double tap and it's going to go back to center. Okay, so you can see 0 0, and the same with Y. I double tap and it's going to go back to center. Okay, so as I go down here, we can see even more sliders. So we've got our size X and size Y. That's for when we want to stretch. I find they're more useful in, say, the title editor, where you want to make a rectangle bigger or smaller, but you can also do that with your clip as well. Again, reset it if you double tap and it will go back to the original setting. Okay, so there we have the frame and fit editor to move your clip around the frame of the LumaFusion interface and of course your exported project. Now, down at the bottom here, we have something called blending. Now, blending is, if you tap on that, you can see we've got the slider that says opacity on it. We all know opacity, the ability to see through our clip or not. Okay, so you can see here our opacity is 100%. If we bring this all the way down, we're going to see what's underneath our clip. Now, at the moment, we've just got a clip that's on the main track, so we're just seeing behind our project. However, if we were to layer a clip underneath our original clip here that we've tapped into, we'll be able to see that clip underneath. So let's go back to the main timeline and put something underneath our clip. Now, can anyone think, or let me know in the comments, why I would use what we call a layer in LumaFusion? Why would I use a layer when I'm editing? What's a layer for? You see here, guys, we've got our clips on the main timeline like we did last time we did some training together. If I bring a clip down and I don't put it on the main track here, I bring it above. Why would I do that? Can anyone let me know? Don't be shy, guys. I would say there's no wrong answers, but there's kind of some right answers here. So I'll give you some examples as well.
Overlay text. We have an answer from Fevzi to overlay text.
Exactly. So to overlay something on top of that main track. So every time you're watching a news report, a documentary, a film, it could be anything, they will be using layers to edit. Now, the reason being is because we can have more than one thing on screen. That's all it is. We can have more than one thing playing at the same time. So as Fevzi said there, right, it could be text, it could be your logo, it could be subtitles, it could be another video clip, it could be a picture, could be music. Okay, so we can gather that when we're creating video, we're creating layer upon layer upon layer. So we have here a video clip on top of our main track. Now, remember, guys, I said last time, the main track is like the backbone of your project. It's the foundation in which you're going to create your story, okay? So anything that you put on top of that main track is there to essentially add to the story that you're trying to tell. So if you see, for example, a news reporter, they're talking to you on screen, but they might be talking about a local fire that's, you know, broken out. Now, you might see clips of the fire, but you're still hearing the news reporter underneath. That's because we're layering a clip on top of that newsreader, for example. So here we have a clip of a girl walking on a beach, and we can see I've put on top a clip of these soothing ocean waves as they're described there. So you can see we've got one clip on top of another. If I double tap on that top clip, you can see we're still editing that top clip as we were doing before. It's still the same clip. But if I go now into that blending mode we were just in and I bring the opacity down, now we can see the clip underneath. So every time you're editing in LumaFusion, you're like a bird. I want you to think of a bird flying across the top of this timeline. Anytime the bird looks down, that is what they're going to see on top, okay? So that takes priority visually over the clip underneath, okay? So let's just go back. I've just double tapped to go back into my frame and fit editor. I'm going to go down to blending, and we can see we've got our opacity there. Super, super easy. You can see as I drop that clip and I press play, now I can see both clips are playing at the exact same time. However, I'm able to see both because I brought the opacity down. Super easy. Now, we also have these things called blend modes. Blend modes are amazing. If you can see at the moment, it's set on normal, which is basically your normal opacity, bringing that down as we're used to. But as you tap on this 3 horizontal lines next to it, you can see I've got lots of different options to darken, multiply, color burn, and so on. And you can see as I tap them, my video is going to look slightly different because it's pulling out the different colors, the lights, the darks of the clips, enabling you to see through. Okay, so you can play around with all of these. In the past, we've actually done blending mode competitions. We've got some really great examples of those, which you can find on our YouTube page. But as you can see, something like this can make a real difference to your story if you're trying to pull out a particular part of your clip, or maybe you're trying to tell a story through whatever you're trying to show on screen. Okay, so those are your blending modes. I'm just going to bring that back up to normal now so we can see our clip. Okay, now we also spoke about layering in terms of being able to hear something but see something else. So that's because we have 2 clips playing on screen at the same time. So just like we did before with one individual clip, I can also move another clip on top. So I'm going to double tap that top clip. Did I bring the opacity all the way down? There we go. So we're looking at that top clip now. And as you can see, I can move that top clip around as I see fit. Okay. So you can see, just like in, let's say you're making a PowerPoint or a keynote presentation, whatever is in front, that's what you're going to see. So you can see we've got the clip on top. We can put it in the corner of the screen here, and it's going to play at the same time as the clip underneath. Okay, easy peasy, right? So anytime you want more than one thing on screen at the same time, they must be above each other on the multi-track timeline. Okay, so that's what we mean when we're layering a clip. And you can have a bit of fun with these. So for example, I can put this clip on the left-hand side of my screen, double tap that bottom clip there, put that on the right-hand side of my screen, and so on. And you can see you can have multiple clips playing at once on screen. Okay. Any more questions about that? I think that's all good. Okay, great. So guys, we've just spoken there about using the frame and fit editor. Now, another thing that I wanted to speak about today was the use of keyframes. We have had a lot of questions about keyframes, what they are, how to use them. And it is a little bit of a complicated concept, which I could talk about for 2 hours straight, but I'm going to give you the best introduction to them as I can. So when you double tap on a clip, we're going back into our main editor. Can you see at the bottom here, we have this icon here, which is lots of little circles on top of each other with a plus icon. Okay, now don't tap them just yet. Don't get too overexcited because we're all going to do this together. So if you want to make a change to a video to the audio to the picture, whatever it is, you can do so in the editors as we've just done so here. So we can pinch in, and now, as you can see, my video clip is just going to play. However, if I wanted to make a change that happens over time, you must add a keyframe because you're giving it 2 different orders or more than 2 orders, right? So, for example, this clip here, I could zoom into this clip, but it would always be zoomed in to the exact same level, right? However, if I wanted it to zoom in over time, I'm basically going to add a keyframe to give it 1 order at 1 specific frame. So as you can see here, as my clip is going to start, so my playhead is at the beginning, I'm going to add a keyframe. And that keyframe is basically an order from the editor saying, at this moment in time, as soon as my clip is at this frame, I want it to look like this. So that's an order you're giving it. So at the moment, I want it to look like my clip is covering the entire frame here. Now, as my clip plays through, perhaps when it gets to this bit where the surfer is, doing this with her hair, I want it to be zooming in on her. So I want it to be zoomed in. So I'm going to add a keyframe here. That's my second order. By the time it gets to this point, I would like my clip to look like this. So you can see I've given this clip 2 orders. I've told LumaFusion at this point, I want the clip to be all the way zoomed out, as you can see here. And I'm just tapping on them now. And at this point, I would like the clip to look like this. So if you give a clip 2 different orders, it's going to have to change in order to get from one keyframe to the other keyframe, right? So as you can see, it's now going to zoom in slowly, slowly, slowly in order to get to that second point. And that's what we mean by a keyframe, okay? So this is a motion keyframe. So it's going to stay exactly the same now because I haven't given it any other orders. So I'm going to show you that one more time. I'm going to show you it in a different way. If I take those keyframes off, I just tapped that, the large keyframe icon again. So now I've got my clip back to scratch. What I want to do is I want to move my clip from the top left of the screen, and as it plays out, I want it to move to the bottom right. Okay, so remember I said I want to give it 2 different orders. They're 2 different keyframes. So at the beginning of the clip, I'm going to move my playhead along to the beginning of that clip there, and I'm going to add a keyframe. Okay, now we can see a keyframe's been added because we've got that blue circle on top of the timeline here. Now I'm going to move my playhead along. I'm going to watch that video and I'm going to think, okay, as soon as it gets to the middle of that video, about here, I would like my video to be at the bottom right of the screen. So I can either use the sliders on the right-hand side as we've been doing. And these are really good if you want to get really, really specific and also make sure your clips move a little bit X and Y as to how you don't want them. So you can get really specific with them, or you can move them with your finger. And as you can see there, a keyframe has been added because the keyframes had been turned on. So I'm telling the app, okay, I need to be making a change. I'm turning the keyframes on. At this point, I want it to be at the top left. And at this point, I want it to be at the bottom right. And as you can see now, as I move between those keyframes, my video is still playing. But as the time is going on, so is the position of that clip. Okay. So Adam's put, after I make keyframes for one clip, how do I apply the same to more clips? Great question, Adam. Basically, you're just going to copy and paste the properties of one clip over to another clip. So for example, if I go back onto my timeline, so there we have, I've changed it onto that clip there. So I'm just going to go to my copy paste board at the bottom, and I'm going to tap on that icon there, copy, and I'm going to go to another clip and I'm going to paste those attributes over. And now can you see the exact same motion has happened? Okay, so I just basically used my my copy paste board at the bottom there, and I just pasted the exact same motion across. Okay, perfect, guys. So that is a keyframe, and we call that a motion keyframe. Okay, so let's move on now. We're going to go to a different clip, and I'm going to jump into another editor. So that is your frame and fit editor, where your video clip fits within the frame of your project. Okay, now I'm going to move on. Here we have our speed and reverse editor. Speed and reverse does what it says on the tin. You can speed your clip up or you can slow your clip down. So we have a slider. Okay, now easy to use. If I speed my clip up to 6 times its speed, obviously my clip is going to go faster. Watch this. My clip is much faster than it was when I was back at its original speed of ×1. Okay, we can see this is its original speed, and let's speed this up, and now it's much, much faster. Now, what the app is actually doing is speeding this clip up so it's going to look a lot smaller on your timeline, because we know from last week a timeline works from basically showing your clip from start to finish as we move along our project. Now, the longer your clip, the more space it will take up on your timeline, because we can see here we've got our time as the ruler here at the bottom. So when we speed our clip up, it's going to take up less space, so it's going to get shorter on our timeline. So our project's obviously going to get shorter. If I slow our clip down, as you can see, I'm going to go all the way down here. Our clip is still going to play out, but on our timeline, it's going to be longer because we're basically making that clip longer in length because we're slowing it down. Okay. Now, this little icon here on the speed and reverse editor, can you see that little icon there under my finger? I keep moving the thing as I'm tapping, but basically that little white line there is to help you understand how slow you can make your clip without making it go really stuttery. Okay, so for example, if you're shooting in a particular frame rate, so let's say you're shooting in 30 frames per second, if you slow that down too much, it's going to look like because you don't have enough frames to fill the space on the timeline. Okay, so as I just showed you there, it changes the length on that timeline. So if you don't have enough information in a clip, if you haven't captured enough frames in a second, you can't slow it down. Slow it down too much, because otherwise we're just going to have to duplicate those frames and it's going to look jittery. Okay, so that white line there is your friend. It's there to tell you, don't go any slower than this, because otherwise your content is going to look as a little bit less professional, right? That's why, for example, if you're shooting on your iPhone, if you go to shoot in slow motion, likely you'll be shooting in 240 plus frames per second, as opposed to say 30 frames per second, because if you're shooting in slow motion, you need so much more data, okay, in order to play something back slow motion. So you got your speed and reverse editor there. The reverse section is here, which is this little toggle on the right hand side. If you choose to reverse a clip, you can see it does take a little bit of time. It will depend on the duration of that clip, how much data is in that clip, the compression of your original video. But as soon as you do this and you let this go round, you can switch instantly. So if you wanted to create some cool effects where you were playing a video forward and then you wanted to reverse it and then you wanted to play it forward again, anything you want to change with that is fine. You can just jump straight out. Okay, everybody happy with that? We're going to move now to our stabilization feature. Stabilization is from Lock and Load. It's by CoreMelt. We've partnered with those. We've integrated it into our app. If you wanted to add stabilization to a video file, it's easy to do. You're just going to toggle this on the right-hand side. And it's basically going to look for any motion within your video. And that's if you're, so let's say you're filming a video and you've got a handheld camera. If you're moving your camera from left to right, the app will be able to recognize that and it will slightly move your video in the opposite direction. Now, obviously, that will mean your video will have to be zoomed in slightly. So the more of the lock and load stabilization that you add to a clip, the more zoomed into your clip will have to go, because essentially it doesn't want to leave any blank spaces in the corners as it moves it left and right. Okay, so it's going to go in the opposite direction. You can add more strength here, add more scale. You can see here, you can really play around with the horizontal, vertical strength, depending on how your video is moving around. I suggest that you find something that works for you in terms of one entire project, and you copy and paste it to all the clips that you've been doing, let's say handheld, with a handheld camera. Okay. Oh, Adam said he's used the stabilizer once and it worked really well. Fantastic. Yeah, that's great to hear. I would say, guys, whenever you're shooting video, never plan to fix anything in post-production. Okay, so we're doing our best to provide you with these features, but really try to think, if you need to use a tripod, take a tripod. If you need to use a microphone, take a microphone. If you need a light, take a light, and so on and so forth. Okay. We're going to move along now to the color and effects editor. Here in the color and effects editor, we can add a variety of beautiful effects to our videos, which we can stack up on top of one another. We can change the strength and we can save for using later. So here we are in our color presets on the right-hand side of the screen. Now, if you want to change something, say, the brightness of your shot, or maybe the saturation or the vibrance, or you want to take the color out, tapping on the original color preset at the top right is going to be your best bet, okay? Because here you can change all the fundamentals of a clip. So your contrast, your brightness, your saturation, as you can see here. I'm just going to move my clip through so you can see some more colors. So we've got our swimmers here. Now here you can see I can change the brightness by moving the sliders up and down. I can also do the same with contrast. Again, what I was saying before about double tapping will reset that slider back to how it was originally, back to the default. So you can change the saturation and so on. So let's say, for example, here we want to bring the brightness slightly down, add a little bit of contrast. I think that looks quite nice. We can also change the colors if we like, add a bit of color correction and so on. Okay. Now, if I want to close that tab, I just tap on that gray horizontal bar here. And as you can see, I can now go on to add any other color presets or any other effects that I want to. So as I scroll down here, you can see we've got a variety that you might want to play around with and jump into and just test out. Or you can move along to the right-hand side and we can jump into any of the other color and effects. So here we've got some user LUTs that you can choose. So let's go color punch blue for this one, and you can see now it's been added on top of that original effect. Okay, so I added the original, I changed some of the contrast and the saturation there, and now I'm adding the color punch cool LUT. But if I want to change that, I'm going to press the garbage bin on the right hand side and I can keep going. So I can just test some of these out. So I think earthy looks quite cool. Now you can see as I'm adding more and more effects, these are stacking on top of each other. The latest ones that you add will go underneath. Okay, so I'm just going to add a few more. So let's test this out, modern vintage, and maybe let's go along a little bit more. You can see actually here, let's go on to add some effects. So, and all I'm doing here is I'm just scrolling through that top panel and I'm going down all of these effects on the right hand side. So let's add a vignette. Okay, so you can see here now, guys, I'm literally stacking all of these color and effects on top of one another to change the look and feel of my video. Okay, now that's all fine. What I would say is the more and more you add, the more you're going to get into this danger zone where you can see all these little dots here at the top of the screen. If we're going into the orange and the red zone, it's basically the app telling you, okay, you're actually adding quite a lot of information onto the tool at the moment. So it might be a little bit more jolty until you export. So just keep an eye on that so you don't add too many. But you can see for all of the effects, we can change any of the elements within them. Now, what I can do is I can also reorder the effects. So as I said, this, when you're adding effects to a video clip or a picture, you're basically stacking them on top of one another. So the first one you add is at the top, and then the changes are made depending on what you've already added. So if you want to change the order, you're going to close all of these effects, and we're going to drag these up. And as you can see, as I change the order, my picture will change because of the order that I've added them. So this gives you an unlimited amount of changes that you can make with your color and effects editor. As I go along, you can even see I can add motion blur and so on. There's lots that you can add. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can use keyframing in the color and effects editor. So I'm just going to delete some of these effects just so that we can really bring this back to basics so I can show you some of the potential of the tool. So let's say here we are back on our original clip. I'm going to go now and add I'm going to bring the saturation. Actually, no, what I'm going to do, let's add some blur to this clip. So let's say, for example, we wanted to blur this clip out. Now, at the moment, you can see I've added that effect and it's been added to the entirety of that clip. Okay, so I've added the Gaussian 40 blur. Now, if I want the blur to change as it's playing through, remember we spoke about keyframes, That is a change to the visual or the audio of a clip as it's playing through over time. I'm going to look down to these keyframes at the bottom left of the screen. So for each of these individual tabs or effects or colors that you can see here, we can add a keyframe. So this is like thousands and thousands and thousands of possibilities that you can do to essentially change how your footage looks. So we're going to add a keyframe here. So let's say, for example, we want the blur to come in about here. Okay, so where this person puts their hand up on the left-hand side. So I'm going to add a keyframe by tapping that group of keyframes, and I'm going to make sure we've got the blur intact. Let's say about this much blur. Now, if I go back, I'm going to take that blur off. I'm going to add a keyframe there. I'm going to take that blur off. And now you can see we've given it two orders. No blur at the beginning, and I want it blurred here. So now when we play our clip through, it will get slightly more blurry, okay? If I want to keep the blur, I'm going to add another keyframe. Again, remember, think of these as orders. And then I'm going to bring back the blur again. So here, I'm going to take that blur off. So now when we play our clip through, we'll look at the keyframes and look at the orders that we're giving it. So we've said first order, not blurry. Now it's going to continue to get more and more blurry until it gets to the level that I've asked for in that second keyframe. It's going to stay the same amount of blurriness. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the radius is coming off and I'm bringing the blur off my video clip. Now, as I said, you can have so many different variations of the effects that you can add to your videos. So let's say, for example, now we wanted to add a color preset, and let's say black and white, for example. Now with black and white, let's say we wanted to change the saturation as we play through. So let's say we wanted our clip eventually to be black and white, but we wanted to start it out with a bit more saturation on. So now what I can do is I can actually add new keyframes for this specific color effect that I've added. Okay, so now I'm going to add a keyframe here. And I'm going to drag my video across, and I can see, okay, where we're still blurry, that's when I'm going to bring the saturation down. And now you can see we've got two different color and effects with two different keyframes happening at the same time. Okay, so there's really no limit to your creativity when you're using keyframes, when you're using any of these editors. Okay, does anyone have a question there about the okay, I can't see any questions there in relation. I think Scott's grabbed Adam's one. Fabulous. Okay, so that's our color and effects editor. Now, if you want to copy and paste any of your color and effects over to another clip, again, we're going to do the same. We're going to go back to that timeline. We're going to look at this copy paste board at the bottom. We're going to tap it, and we're going to tap on color and effects. We're going to untap what we don't want to copy over, and I'm going to press on copy. And now I'm going to go to another clip, let's say here, and I'm going to copy and undo those and paste the attributes from that last clip on. Now, can you see we've also got our keyframes, and we've also got the color effects added. Okay, so it will take those keyframes into account. Okay, I don't see any more questions on that, but remember, guys, keyframes can be added to each individual effect, whether that is in your frame and fit editor, whether that's in blending mode, whether that's in your size and position, whether that's your color and effects, and so on. Okay, now, guys, we're going to jump into our audio editor. Okay, so I want you to find now a clip for me with audio on. You can see I've got a clip here of this man speaking on the beach, and you can see this audio because we've got the audio waves at the bottom on the thumbnail here. I'm going to double tap on it, and you can see it's automatically opened in my color and effects editor because that's what I was last in. So I'm going to tap on that speakerphone icon at the bottom of the screen where it says audio. Now here we are in the audio editor. Now as I play my clip through
against the chalk cliffs, and here we are, and it's
you can see the audio levels on the left-hand side are going to go up and down as we speak. So over here on the left-hand side. Now, this is the main, I guess, area where most of you will be staying in your editing journeys, especially at the beginning. You can see here we can bring the audio down and up, okay? Now, again, with keyframing, you can change the level of an audio of a clip as it's playing through. I'm sure some of you guys just from what I've shown you there in the color and effects editor, could do this yourselves. I'm going to show you now. You could essentially, what I'm saying is you can put the exact same practice onto any of the editors to work this out and play around with it. So I'm basically going to change the gain over time. So because gain is open, you can see the keyframes have opened up, and I'm going to make this audio level come down and then come back up again. Okay, so I'm adding a keyframe. Let's say he's going to speak for a bit here. I'm going to add a keyframe, and then I'm going to bring the audio level, let's say, down. I'm going to add another keyframe again. And can you see, as I'm adding these keyframes in, the audio level depicted by that green horizontal line is coming down, and about here I want it to come back up again. So you can see now, as I play this through, you should be able to hear the difference in the audio level.
We thought it'd be really cool to take some photos by the sea against the chalk cliffs, and here we are, and it's
okay. So you can imagine if you have an audio clip, let's say you've got some noise in the background, or you have a music clip that you want to bring in and out of your timeline, you can do so easily with keyframing. I have quite a few people always emailing me to ask about keyframing audio while it's playing. So you can do this, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it all the time for every project, because you will accidentally add a lot of keyframings in. So for example, if I play this clip, keyframes are switched on here. I'm going to play the clip and I'm going to change the gain levels. Watch what happens.
full weather, the sun is shining, it's such a warm day, it couldn't have been better. And we have
okay, so basically I've been adding keyframes as the audio is being playing. A lot of people like to do this because they like to think, okay, I can just listen to it and change it as I play. However, if you make a mistake, you'll have to go back and you'll have to tap on the keyframes and remove them individually. So I would recommend, listening back to your clip and moving the keyframes setting the keyframes as you are going to listen back to your clip. Now, we know a lot of you guys have been asking about audio ducking. Audio ducking is one of my favorite things that you can do in LumaFusion, because it enables you to essentially do a lot of this work very, very quickly without having to add in audio keyframes. And I'm going to show you what that looks like on a different timeline. So I'm just going to go back out here into my project manager, and you can see here I've got a vertical project where I had an interview with this gentleman on the beach, and he was talking about a photo shoot he was doing with this saxophone player. So we have his audio here on the main track, but we also have this audio playing underneath. Okay, so you can see here what I did to edit this is I used that main track just to put my interview clips, and then I put some of the B-roll on top because I wanted to time it to the audio underneath. But if I play this timeline through, I just want you to hear the audio from when he's speaking.
we thought it'd be really cool to take some photos by the sea.
You can't really hear him, can you? Okay, that's because the audio of that the audio that I've added, that music track, is essentially the exact same level. So if I've just got somebody speaking, if I was speaking to you, just in a room from one to one, and I put the radio on, you'd be able to hear me less, purely because we've got now two things playing at the same time. So the audio of the backing track, we want to make that slightly come down when we've got somebody speaking on screen. So in this example here, I could, of course, jump into that audio track. And as soon as we hit the bit where he's going to start speaking, I could, of course, use keyframes to bring that audio track down. That's going to take me a little bit more time. It's going to be a bit more fiddly. So what I would like to introduce to you now is the concept of audio ducking. Audio ducking is basically you guys telling LumaFusion, whenever this clip plays, this is a really important clip, I would like all the other audio to just duck down a little bit. Think of it like volume is ducking down, right? So I want everything else to go a little bit quieter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double tap on my important clip. That, in this example, here is my interview. I'm going to double tap on that clip. Now you can see above where we've just looked at in the gain, we're going to look at configuration. Everything is automatically set to auto. Okay, auto basically means that if there is any other clip on the timeline which is set as the primary audio ducking clip, auto means, okay, it will listen, it will duck down. If you set it to none, it will just ignore any clips that you set as your primary clip. So anything that's important, set it as primary here in your audio ducking. So As you can see, I'm not doing anything now to the audio track underneath. I've not changed the audio levels at all. All I've done is I've said, I've got an interviewee on screen and I want to be able to hear him at all times. So I'm going to go back into the timeline. Now I've set this clip here as my primary audio track. Everything else we saw has been set to auto because that's the automatic default that LumaFusion sets your audio ducking in. And now you should be able to hear the audio, the backing track, the music duck down in order for us to hear that interviewee clip.
We thought it'd be really cool to take some photos by the sea against the chalk cliffs. And here we are, and it's beautiful weather. The sun is shining. It's such a warm day. It couldn't have been better. And we have a dog with us. It's the perfect shoot.
Can you see, as soon as he stopped speaking there, we saw that the primary clip there has stopped. So now the audio from the back is automatically going to come back up. I think this is such an amazing tool to get your head around, guys. If you're going to be doing little packages, you can see this is a reel that we made for Instagram. We just did a few interviews with the different people on the beach. So we've got the saxophone player there. All I'm going to do now is just double tap and I make sure that I set them to primary. Okay, so now that backing track is just going to move around that important content on the timeline. Amy's put the link in there for a complete explainer on audio ducking. It does take a little bit of practice. However, it is something that I would really recommend you guys check out. And another thing that I would like you guys to go and focus on in the audio editor is the sound isolation feature that we've got. It's one of our newest features here in LumaFusion, and you can see if you tap up here at the top of the screen into all of the purple effects here, we can add sound isolation on. Now, when you add sound isolation onto a clip, it uses artificial intelligence. It's Apple's sound isolation filter that we've integrated into LumaFusion, and essentially you can change this wet dry mix. The more that you add onto this, the more it will remove the background from the clip that you've got on screen. So I'm just going to just mute that background clips just so you can kind of, just the music. I'm just going to take that off so we can hear properly. So we have our clip here, and without the sound isolation, it sounds like this.
Really cool to take some photos by the sea against the chalk cliffs.
Okay, so we can hear a little bit of background waves, the air, you know, just people talking in the background. If I add sound isolation on, as you can see here.
And here we are, and it's beautiful weather. The sun is shining. It's such a warm day. It couldn't have been better. And we have...
So you can see the more I add that sound isolation filter on, the more it's going to remove that background sound from your clip, which I think on the majority of the scenarios that we're filming in, removing stuff like air conditioning units, maybe people chattering in the background, it's great. However, I would always say, and I've said this on YouTube, make sure that you don't add too much of it. So about 70%, 60 to 70% is fantastic. If you add too much, it removes the atmosphere of your clip. And I know you guys are doing some fantastic storytelling. I wouldn't want you to strip some of the ambience from, you know, the footage that you're working with. Okay, so this is there to help you remove some of that pesky background noise that you don't like. However, it's not there to be added to every single clip, just like you wouldn't do for stabilization, or you wouldn't add, you know, a color and effect onto every clip. Treat each clip separately and add on the effects as they're needed. Okay, now the last editor that we are going to focus on today, and as with all of these editors, there's so many different elements within them. I'm just doing as much as we can in this session, is the title editor. Now, I've made a title in advance of this session because I got a lot of clips down here on the timeline of holidays and vacations. So I made this title, and I'm going to show you now how presets work. Now, we promised you that we're going to talk about keyframing and presets because these are the elements that's really going to lift your storytelling and your production to another level and enable you to personalize your editing within the tool. So back to basics to add a piece of text. Two ways to do it. First way, we're going to tap on the add clip icon at the bottom of the screen. That's that plus icon in a circle. And we're going to tap on either a main title or an overlay title. Let's click on main title. Main title is basically a piece of text on the main track, and an overlay title is a piece of text that you put above the main track. Okay, now we have a piece of text on our timeline. The other way to do it is to go up to our media library and go into titles. And as you can see here, there's a load of different titles that you can play around with. We call it titles as opposed to text because titles encompasses other layers within that. So like shapes and maybe even other images. Or you can just add a piece of plain text by just dragging that down. Okay, so there's two main ways to add your text. When you have a piece of text on your timeline, please do this with me if you're got this open at home. You're going to double tap onto that piece of text. And as you can see, now we are in the text editor, as we can see. Sorry, we call it the title editor. Okay, so on the right-hand side, we can see it says your text here. That is because this is directly correlating to the text you see on screen. Okay, so we can see we have one piece of text on screen. As I tap to open that, it works exactly the same as we've done in all the editors, where we've tapped onto the gray horizontal bar, and we're basically able to open up that facet of what we're working in. So now we're working on this piece of text that says your text here. I can tap and I can change the text of this. And I can tap back out, and essentially now I've changed the text, and I did that by just tapping this pencil icon inside that rectangle. Okay, and as you can see, when you have a piece of text open, we can change the font. Okay, we can tap, we can choose a system font, or if you've imported another piece of text in, like I have done from any of the font apps that you can get, Fantasy or defont.com and stuff like this, you can bring them directly into the tool. Okay, so now you can see I have a piece of text on screen, but a piece of text is it's fantastic if you're adding subtitles maybe, but maybe you want to add a little bit more. Let's say like a shape or another image or your logo. It could be anything. We can add onto this with this plus icon here on the right hand side of the screen. And this is where you can really start to personalize the tool to how you want to use it. Okay, so let's say, for example, I'm just going to change this text to I'm going to change this to the text that we usually use in our training. So LumaFusion, I'm going to add now, you can add an image or another shape. So let's add a shape, and you can see now I have a shape on screen and the word LumaFusion. And you can see I can just change these by just going down the sliders on the right hand side. I can change any of the colors, either using that pointer or just with my finger and so on. And you can see I can have complete control over how this is going to look on screen, either by dragging and moving my finger around the screen, or I can just basically make this however I like. Okay, now the more and more layers you add, the more obviously detail you're going to get onto your title. So if I go back now and I go onto the title I made earlier, okay, here we can see on screen that we have a lot going on. Okay, if I double tap into this, you can see how detailed you can get. We've got shape, words, and then loads of shapes, which are basically the sunshine that I was trying to create. So essentially here, you can see that this is so many layers within a title. Okay, so a title is completely flat when it's on the timeline. However, when you are making a title, it's made up of all these layers. So if I tap into any of these layers, can you see I can change any of them as I go? I can change the colors, I can change the look and the feel. And I've just made this from scratch. But if you wanted to change a title that's already in the title menu in the media library, you can do that as well. You can add to them, you can change them, you can use them however you like. So, just been having a bit of fun with these. Now, I promised you that we would talk about presets. Now, a preset is essentially you creating something in LumaFusion that you're going to use again. So a title preset is creating a preset of a title that you think you'll use in another project. Now, let's say, for example, that I worked for a holiday company and I wanted to create a series of videos for YouTube in which I would always want to have my logo on. And let's say this is my logo, Time for a Vacation, or my main title. Now, rather than me every single time I edit, have to copy and paste this between the timelines, or even worse, recreate it, as I've seen a few people do, what I can do is I can save this within LumaFusion and just drag and drop it down onto every video I make. And we do this by using this wonderful star icon on the right-hand side of the screen. So you can see there's a star. I'm going to tap on that star. Once very important, guys. This all has to be however I like it. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm saying I want to save this because it looks amazing. So I'm going to press on that star icon with the plus icon. I'm going to give it a name. So let's say vacation title. Okay, so now I'm going to press on that plus icon at the top right of that pop-up box. Once I've done that, can you see it's jumped up to the top of the screen? Okay, that's because it's now in my user titles. And you can see there, I've got my user titles here. Okay, you can see I also have a few other user titles that I use. This is for the videos that I do for the LumaTouch Academy on YouTube. I always put the same border on them. I just drag and drop it on. Same again, it always pops up saying Caroline. It's because it's already a lower third I made. This one, it always pops up when we do your problem solve with Amy and Max, because I just drag and drop it on. Okay, so this is about saving you guys time, which is very important, because then you're going to focus on actually the fun stuff, which is telling your actual story and not just, you know, spending too much time on more technical elements. So we've added that as a user title, which we did by pressing that plus icon, and then we saved it and gave it a name. So now if I go into a completely fresh project, I'm going to show you what this looks like. I'm opening a fresh project here, and let's say we want to add some videos in. So let's say we've got a new video, let's say something nice like this, beautiful aerial footage. We've brought that down onto the timeline. So you guys have gone out, you've got a new project, you want to bring that title in. All I'm going to do now is going to go up to my media library, tapping on that icon at the top left, tapping on titles here, and now you can see that vacation title is automatically saved. So it's basically like something you've done earlier, which is going to make your future self thank you. Okay, because you can see I can drag this down onto a layer, and now beautiful, it's already on my clip. Okay, so you can see here that's already on the clip there, and now I can go and add something like a transition onto it. So let's say we're going to what should we do? We'll make it push onto the screen, and now you can see I've got my title on the screen. Let's make it soft wipe out. And now that's super easy, guys, right? So what I would advise you guys doing is creating a title for your Instagram Reels and your YouTube videos. Create them separately. So you've got like a 16:9 and a 9:16 version and so on. Ed's put, is it possible to share presets with a colleague? Yes, it is. So if you go into your title editor, so I'm going to double tap on the title. Okay, I'm going to go up to my user titles up here. You can see it's there. So basically, let's say I've made this, and then Amy is going to go out and shoot some videos. And Amy says, okay, Caroline, while you're asleep in London, I'm filming. And while she's asleep, I'm awake. We're going to tap and share it. I'm going to tap on share, and you can see I can share an airdrop, or I can add it to, say, like my Dropbox or Frame.io and so on. And then Amy can pick it up her end, and then we can both be creating videos which look exactly the same. So the whole idea of presets, guys, is to make your life easier in the future. So an idea of a preset might be, let's say, a watermark or a logo that you add to your videos every single time you edit. You know, if you had a video like this, and I'm going to show you how quick and easy it is to do. Let's say here, let's go back into our project. Let's find a nice clip here. Okay, so let's say I've got my video clip here, and I wanted to add, let's say, a logo. Now, I could, each time if I wanted to, go into my photos, go into my albums, go and find logos. Okay, then drag and drop my logo on. Okay, that's fine. I could do this every single time. We see quite a few people do it. Now, I could then make a frame and fit, so I could make it the exact position I want. I could put it in the place. That's fine. But what's going to happen next time I edit? It's basically it might be slightly bigger, or it might be slightly smaller, or it might be slightly to the right or slightly to the left. So by making a preset, you're basically enabling yourself to have something that's in the same position each time, and you're just dragging and dropping it on. Now, presets can be made in terms of position on screen. You can make a preset for, let's say, your audio. You can make a preset for your color and effects. Let's say you always make videos with, say, black and white, for example, but you twinge some of the ideals within that. You can create presets. Every time you see this plus icon inside of a star, that is to create a new preset. Okay, so here, for example, I can tap on the plus icon and save that as my logo. Oh, not an emoji. So let's say watermark, and I can tap. That's basically going to save me my motion preset. Okay, so in your frame and fit editor, this is saying any picture that you add this preset to is going to go in that exact location. Okay, so then if I drag and drop that on to another picture, I can just basically add that same motion preset. I can double tap, I can go up to the top right, and I can tap on watermark. Boom, it's in the exact same position. Okay, exactly the same with color and effects, exactly the same with titles. You're saving things for stuff that you're going to be doing later on, guys. Okay, so that is a run through of all of the main editors that we have here in LumaFusion. Okay, frame and fit, stabilization, you've got your titles, your audio, and so on. So it's really, really important that you spend that time to dive into them yourself, play around with them. As I say all the time, you cannot break anything. So just go in and play around and just have a little bit of fun with it. We do have a lot of videos on our YouTube channel. I would urge you guys to go and check that out. As Amy's just posted there, we've got our reference guide as well, which is a written reference guide for any of you that would like to read step-by-step instructions. Every single icon, every single feature is written about in depth on our website, luma-touch.com. Or if you're more of a visual learner and you just want to be a little bit entertained by the fun team we have here, we've got loads of videos like, you know, our own editing journeys, videos that we've made, educational content. Please do check us out on YouTube, where we have loads of different series like this one I do from the LumaTouch Academy, which is like techniques, creative editing. Amy and Max, they do your problem solved and did you know, which are like tips and tricks from customer support. Scott's doing his own series, and so is Terry. So it's really, really worth checking that out. And of course, if you guys want any one-to-one training, please do get in touch with me personally, and we can jump in and help you guys out. Okay, so we will be sending you guys an email after this of the recording. I will be publishing this on YouTube. So if you want to go back and check anything out, you won't have to think, what did Caroline say? You can go back and look at it. And we will be running more of these sessions, guys. So if you want us to focus on any particular areas, like diving in for a whole hour of keyframing or a whole hour of multicam or a whole hour of blending modes, we can do that. Okay, so we want to provide the sessions that are going to be of most use to you. So please do let us know in the forms when we post them, when we sign up, and we'll just deliver what you guys need. Amy, Scott, thank you so much for answering all the questions. Can't multitask.
Yeah,
great
no,
job,
you did great.
Caroline.
I've just clicked saved the chat. And so anybody, I think Fevzi and maybe one other person mentioned they'd like to see the chat after. So I will, if you email Caroline to the link that she sent you for the invitation, we can probably get you a copy of this chat out to you if you want to refer to that and to some of the links that we sent.
Yes, guys. Yeah, I'll send you guys the video out, and I might as well send the chat at the same time, Scott. I can just ping that to all of you guys. And yes, we will see you guys at the next virtual training, which will be in a few weeks. We'll release the date later on. And yeah, keep in touch, keep practicing, and any questions, we're here for you guys. Thank you very much for tuning in.